Greetings, good people. Welcome to Who Knows, It's Just Life, the podcast. I'm your host, Kyle. Thank you for fitting me into your day today. I know it's been another long time since I dropped an episode, so I appreciate the patience. Today I want to kind of just give a few more updates on where I'm at with life in general. And really, I kind of want to reflect on this idea of mental health, self-care. I see a lot about that. And I talked about that at the first episode of this year. But what's really bugging me is that we're not putting it in a context of symptoms of a system that's failing in terms of capitalism. And so I kind of want to just vent on that for a little bit. But I do want to just kind of give some updates first on everything that's been going on in the last, I guess, month or so since I've dropped an episode. So there is still turmoil in the Tigray region in Ethiopia. I know I mentioned that at the very beginning. That kind of was starting when I first started the show, and yeah, it's just gotten worse. I did notice on Instagram there was a couple ways to donate to support the refugees in that area. I know folks are trying to flee the violence, so hopefully folks can do that and help in some small way. But obviously that's a big deal. What also happened recently, just I think yesterday or 2 days ago, is the Suez Canal was blocked for almost a full week, and by a ship that was just the wrong direction. And it just got clear like 6 days later. So one of the busiest canals in the world, if not the busiest, was literally shut down for 6 days, which is crazy. I haven't really read enough about it, but also vaccines are being rolled out pretty much in full force now. I think Prince George's County just opened it up to everybody. They have been phasing it out in terms of pre-existing conditions and elderly folks first and stuff like that. But now we're about to be in April, and they are opening that up, at least in my county, to everybody. So I know that's not the story everywhere, but I know that's been a steady stream of progress, it sounds like, from the vaccine standpoint. It's the end of the first quarter of the year, and I wanted to touch base on where I've been in terms of, or where I'm at in terms of some of the things that I mentioned at the first episode of the year in terms of goals and stuff. And I will say that, having COVID kind of hindered some of those, but really it should have helped me do some others. So in terms of exercising and working out, that definitely took a hit. I just looked it up. I did about 55 activities over the course of the first 90 days of the year. So obviously not a very high percentage, but my average was like 34 minutes per exercise, which isn't bad. But obviously I was kind of out of commission for a couple weeks there. So I guess that's all right. Meditation, I really have still not gotten that to be a habitual thing. Like, I'm one of those people who will like take deep breaths and meditate like randomly over the course of a day. And that doesn't happen all that much, but if I'm feeling stressed or having a moment, like, I'll do it. But I need to make it a daily practice. And I did it for a couple brief periods of time. I had a 2 or 3 day in a row, but I never held true to it. So that's, and as I said in that episode, I just need to, every day is a new day to make that choice and get course correct, or get that streak going. So, tomorrow's another day. I also changed my job up, and I didn't mention it earlier because it was still in the works, but basically I talked about how my employer was not very keen on working from home and all that, and how that was kind of a struggle. But I ended up finding a company who is fully remote, and we're basically affiliated. We purchased a company who does solar roofing based out of Switzerland, and we are forming up the U.S. team and bringing that technology here to the United States. And so I'm really excited about that. The culture is super, family friendly, unlike, my other employer. And, like, for example, the energy around travel, it's like, if whenever when it's COVID safe to do so, if you're able to squeeze it into like kids schedules and stuff like that, you can travel. If you want to bring your kids, you can bring your kids. Like, we'll have things for the kids to do if that's the best thing for you. But no pressure. We can Zoom or whatever. So like, it's very much it's literally a family friendly company, and I'm really excited to work with them. And I'm really excited to be working with them. And it's also really the first job that's truly aligned with my goals in terms of actually what I'm doing. I worked for a company that was in energy, but it was kind of like the stodgy normal energy systems. And also my last job, I worked in HVAC, which kind of was just like, current processes, current systems, current equipment. It wasn't anything groundbreaking or new, nothing directly addressing climate change in any real way, tangibly, or at least nothing I was working on. So this is definitely a new industry for the United States anyway, and it's directly aligned with reducing carbon emissions here in the States and globally. And this is at least a job that environmentally syncs with my beliefs. I know I have other interests too, but it's rare for a job to fully line up with everything that you believe. So at least for me, this is a great shift. Another thing that's really been bugging me a little bit the last couple of weeks is that my son's school is actually one of the few schools in DC that is not offering any in-person classes for children. Most of them have opened up, at least in some kind of hybrid capacity, and still enabling distance learning and stuff like that for those who it's not possible for, or not it's not what they want to do. But most schools are doing that. My son's school has not done anything like that. They have small hubs that they've offered to I think 100 students, but it's a much larger school than that, and not even for the elementary school kids who my son's in that age range. So it's kind of unfortunate because I really see the need for him to be around other adults other than his mom or his dad or family members, and also for him to be around other kids. So I really was hoping they would have something for us this last quarter of the year, but that does not seem to be the case. So I'm gonna try to get him into other activities and get him involved with friends and my friends and their kids and stuff like that, to try to keep him engaged socially and all that. Maybe more on that later. All right, so I really want to get into this idea of self-care and mental health in the context as a symptom of a failed system. I've been intrigued by economic models since high school, and I wasn't the one that just barely learned enough to pass the test. I was actually interested in them, the difference between capitalism, socialism, communism, all those things. And I've kind of just had a hobbyist's perspective on just learning more about those. And actually, as an activist, I was involved in understanding them as well. And I even took classes. I eventually did an MBA, whatever. So I have a fairly decent picture of what capitalism is. And I can't help but realize that there are failures in capitalism, not only where markets fail, pretty much textbook failures of market, in terms of environmental issues and things like that, but really just I see it failing us as people in a way that I don't think people are actually realizing. So one thing that I mentioned is that I read My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem, and this book definitely changed how I see this country for sure, but even activism and just self-care and all of those things. One thing, and I got to give a shout out to Jaslyn from the Racisms podcast. She told me about a webinar that he was doing in January, I think it was. And he said something in there. He said, first of all, there's rest is a radical notion to the Black body. And he also said that our bodies have knowledge and intuition in them that precedes the systems that we live in. And I thought that was extremely powerful. And I think that so many of us are struggling in this current system, in this current lifestyle. And if we truly listen to our bodies, we will see that the forces of capitalism and the market economy and all those things, and so many parts of our society are literally opposing our natural humanness. And I'm going to get into that a little bit because that's something I just really, really, really fully, I just definitely believe. And I guess some examples of that are just if you are in school and you're in a lecture for anything more than 20 minutes, but I know some lectures in college go for 90 minutes or whatever, maybe longer, grad school's longer. So that's literally not how our bodies are designed. And when you feel fidgety, when you feel like your mind is distracted, you want to pull out your phone or whatever, that's because like we're not supposed to sit and focus on one thing for that length of time. Like concerts are one thing, that's engaging, that's a different experience, but we're not designed to be talked to for 30 minutes or more. Like that's just not a thing. Another example is the 9 to 5. Like so many of us work either sitting at a desk, some of us work standing up, but it's like 8 hours, minimal breaks, whatever, and we feel mentally exhausted or physically exhausted after a working day. That is a long time. And I started reading this book that I need to finish, but it's basically it's called Limited Wants, Unlimited Means, which is kind of counter to what capitalists teach us, which is limited means, unlimited wants, where we want so much, but there's only so much to go around. So you have to hustle and fight to get whatever it is you want. But the way the world is that there's actually a plethora of resources, enough to sustain life if we limit what it is we want. And so, that whole 9 to 5 notion, it's just like we're in this rat race. They literally call it a rat race, right? I mean, like there's so many like anecdotal things that we say about work, the 9 to 5, the grind, whatever. Like it's not a pleasurable experience. We know it's not a pleasurable experience, but we subscribe to it, we succumb to it because it's how we feed our children, it's how we feed ourselves and do the things we want to do. But it actually doesn't make sense for our bodies. And I think as tired as we get and as exhausted as we are in this economic model, I think if we listen to our bodies, we see the evidence of that. So the thing about capitalism is that it heightens it puts on a pedestal this idea of trade and markets, and it couples that with individual ownership and individuality, which to me, so trade is cool. Like trade's been happening in the world for a long, long, long time. That's not a horrible thing. But when you couple that with individual notions of ownership, that's when it gets a little scary, because we are communal people. If you put somebody in solitary confinement, that is literally a way to kill somebody, because we are social beings. And so when we put ourselves in an environment where this idea of competition is more important than collaboration, when we talk about our value in terms of work being more important than our love and compassion with our families, friends, and neighbors, we really start to see a deterioration in our society. And if you look at symptoms, I mean, I don't have numbers, I didn't do like research, but just through experience in the world, suicide was at a high rate, especially last year with COVID. Like a lot of isolation. People weren't, people lost jobs. People were like facing unbelievable challenges. So suicide was at a terrible rate. You have all these symptoms of people literally suffering under these conditions. We're trying to self-medicate using alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, or like dumb, violent TV or whatever it is. Like we are pacifying ourselves. We're trying to survive in a system that's unhealthy, and most of the tools that we're trying to use to help ourselves feel better temporarily are also unhealthy. And so, yeah, this is just a big thing. So anyway, you see, I've seen, at least on social media, a lot of posts about mental health. And one of the ones that really struck me heavily was one that said, if you don't have time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. Read that again. That was originally posted by Salami Healing Herbs. So that hit me hard. I'm going to read that again. If you don't make time for your wellness, you will be forced to make time for your illness. And that is so true. Like, it's just so true. And I think it's also true. So it's true for people, right? If you don't brush your teeth, you're going to have teeth issues. If you don't, exercise, work out, like you'll have other issues. If you don't eat right, you'll have, blood pressure, all other kind of issues that can happen. Like if you don't take good care of yourself, like I'm a dude that just happened to have like not acne and stuff like that. So I never really had a face washing, routine or whatever. And I've interacted with women here and there, be like, "Oh, you got to take care of your face." I'm like, whatever. I gotta get my buddy Kenny on here too, because he posted a video. He's got a shop where he sells a lot of self-care and products for wellness, really. And he posted an Instagram video about like taking care of his face, doing his face washing or whatever. And he's like, "It's not just for the women, fellas. We got to do it too." And I was like, "You're right, bro. You're right." I'm gonna have him on the show so we can talk more about that. But I've seen so much about self-care and especially from a mental health standpoint. People posting a lot of good information about identifying anxiety, identifying stress, identifying depression, and identifying it for yourself, but also for friends. A lot of times, we struggle to identify things like that in our friends and truly check in on them as people. One thing that actually Russ Momentum said as well is, instead of asking people, "How are you?" ask people, "How are you sleeping?" Ask, "Are you eating? How well are you eating?" Those are things that are more connected to how well somebody's actually doing than obviously just asking, "How you doing?" Everybody says fine. So, that's something that is a really good thing to keep in mind. So I just have this struggle with the whole mental health and self-care thing. Like, yes, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to have effective tools to combat mental health issues, right? But I truly, truly believe that a lot of what we're seeing are symptoms of a system that is failing us, a system that is counter to our humanity. I already mentioned like how capitalism like sets up individual things, makes things like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like how successful are you compared to the next person? And from there we lose the community. We lose the value of love and compassion. That really makes us human. That really is what makes us happy, and happiness, smiling, and all that stuff literally makes your life longer. So we're distracted by all these material things. We're distracted by, this idea of competition and monetary value. And we are losing the connection to what really serves us as people. What really drives me crazy right now is that not only do we have to survive in this system, a system that hates who we are in the way that it's set up, but especially if you're black, brown, basically if you're not a cisgender white man or whatever with money, like the system literally is crapping on you, is hating you, like in its design, right? So not only are we trying to just survive, but we also have to carve out the time and money to pursue self-care and mental health services, which are really just symptoms of us trying to survive here in the first damn place. So it's like, and of course that system isn't going to provide a lot of those services, easily to us, or the education system doesn't talk about these things. And again, I'm glad that social media is making these things available to us now. And it might not, and let me also back that up, but it might not just be now. I got on social media yesterday. If you're new to the show, like I just got here in terms of social media. So this might have been floating out there for a long time. I know it's been on my timeline a lot more recently in the last like month or two, which is great. But anyway, I really want to correct the diagnosis. I don't want people to feel overwhelmed with their own anxiety, with their own stress, with their own thing, like their own things. While we need to treat those things, while we need to find healthy means to live with those issues and those challenges, I think we really need to hold the system accountable, and we really need to correctly diagnose capitalism as a failed system. I already mentioned like climate change and stuff earlier with my career change and whatnot. It's obviously failing the environment as a whole. Like capitalism, capitalism doesn't quantify impact to the environment, which is one of the actual textbook market failures of capitalism. It doesn't quantify externalities, things that hit the balance sheet. So like the environment, it's not there. So climate change is a foregone conclusion for a capitalist. But again, that's going to kill millions of people. It's going to reshape the entire ecosystem, and it's going to cause all kinds of havoc if we don't, curb the tide there, of course. So, but anyway, so capitalism just is failing us in multiple ways, right? And the other thing that I think is very costly about the capitalist system is incessant focus on value. And that value is categorized in terms of capital, like, assets. And that asset could be, labor. It could be a commodity. So labor, in other words, your time, right? Like, how much time do you put in? Your time is worth this much. You get this much money for your time doing this service, doing this task, and that whole relationship. So capitalism only rewards people who have been able to fit some of their skills or ideas or whatever into something that somebody else thinks is worth paying for. And so we've been reduced to those pieces of ourselves that are deemed valuable by the system. In other words, the parts of us that are easily extractable by the system dictates how well we adapt to it and how highly it can elevate into its stratosphere of economic mobility and quote unquote success. I had this discussion with a friend of mine. I was like, and somebody's like, so-and-so, they're real successful. They're making like, they might be making $1 million, whatever. I was like, I don't call that successful. Successful is when you own your time. You could be making $1 million and working 80 hours a week. I don't want that life. No way. I'd rather make $200,000 a year or $100,000 a year and work 4 hours a day or 4 hours a week or whatever. Like that's to me, that's successful. If I can survive and money's working for me, you know what I'm saying? Like that to me is success. But anyway, and those are also things that are more synced with human nature. Like, again, we're not supposed to be working for 8 hours a day. Like that's literally not core to who we are as people. We're also creatives. And I think so much of what's wrong with society is that we don't value our creative energies. I feel like, my son is 7. There's nothing more he wants to do than to draw, like create worlds, create games. We're playing with all these different action figures or whatever. He's coming up with all these different, like, just things and imaginative ways of expressing and playing and doing all these things. For all of us, we were all there. But at some point, that was all either squelched or minimized in order for the system to extract out what it deemed was valuable. And obviously for a select few, our creative side is what was seen as valuable for artists and those in the entertainment, the arts, whatever. Those are the lucky few whose creativity has been part of their livelihood, right? But literally every human being has creative energy. And we are literally doing ourselves a disservice by not allowing ourselves the time and space to explore that creative side. For me, it's music, among other things. And, podcasting and all that, this is a way for me to just check in and remember, like I need to be doing my creative stuff. I need to, play music. And actually, it's funny because that came up when I was at the Mount Pleasant Acres Organic Farm in Preston, Maryland. My buddy Kenny, again, he invited me out there to, kind of work with the land. And actually, it was a lot of kids there. We were, helping the kids like plant seeds and stuff like that. It's actually historic land that's being preserved. And it's historic land from, linked to Harriet Tubman. And, in that context, in that setting, Kenny was telling me how, like, getting your hands literally in soil and working soil can be therapeutic and cathartic. And it just kind of activates a part of your brain, like activates endorphins in your brain that's life-giving. You're obviously giving life to the seeds and plants, which obviously pass that life forward onto animals and humans as well. But just the process of that is life-giving to the person doing the work. And I thought that was very true. We were literally like working soil when we were talking about that. But for me as a musician, I felt it was similar to, putting my hands on a keyboard. There's just an organic flow of expression of there's just something core to my humanity about just playing music. And I think they even say like dogs, if you pet a dog, like, it releases endorphins too. Like there's just healthy physical things that our bodies can do and should do. If it works for you, you should do it. Right. That just literally soothe us and help us heal in ways that are very deep and probably beyond our understanding. But at the end of the day, listen to your body. And if it works for you, do it. And, so I don't know. I think that those are just key elements that we need to tap into. And it's different for everybody, right? I think everybody has a creative side. What that looks like is for everybody to explore. I really just feel I'm really on this kick of just tapping into what our bodies are actually telling us. If we have mental health challenges, let's address those, right? We need to survive, right? And when we have space and time and capacity to zoom out a little bit, let's think about why those are even happening and why is that as common as it is? And how do we build a system? Well, how do we inoculate ourselves from the system that's here and protect ourselves? And then, further down the line, how do we build a system that is more in sync with us as humans and not as detrimental to the environment and ourselves as people? So to me, that's a big thing. That's what I'm really trying to focus on right now. Another update I wanted to mention was the idea of self-love that I mentioned with my son for this year and focusing on the body. So one of the things that I did was we talked about Self-Care Sunday. We implemented a Self-Care Sunday, and I have him every other weekend, so it's not exactly going to be like a very, very consistent thing. But I think we might have done it once, maybe twice. And part of it for him was just taking a long, warm bath, no toys, not intentionally trying to get clean, but just lay in the bath. And that boy loves to just sit in the bath. And I think most of us probably do if we give ourselves the time and space to do it. So he enjoyed that. We, using body butter and just being intentional. And the first time we did it, I had him use the body butter on his body and being thankful for each body part, legs and arms and everything. And so that was cool. And I remember, we had a busier Sunday most recently in March. And he actually was like, hey, we didn't do Self-Care Sunday. And I'm like, yo, that's what's up. We did not do that. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm just glad that even just the one or two times, I think we did it twice, it stuck with him already. And I think that's powerful because it speaks to him as a person. And one thing that I'm also learning about him is that he doesn't like to be busy for busy's sake. Now, he loves stacking up a day with things that he wants to do, but it's like playing and drawing and playing a little iPad or watching something on TV or something like that. So he doesn't mind. He doesn't mind doing things, but he also just likes to chill and just be just have things just be available to do things, right? And I worry because part of the whole work from home thing for me and him is I'll tell you what, that boy is more conscious of 5 o'clock than I was at that age because he's sitting there waiting. His school's over a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours before, 5 o'clock before my work was over. So he's sitting there playing by himself, occupying himself, whatever, but he's waiting for 5 o'clock so that we can play, And so part of what I'm worried about is that he's already so structured and time oriented, which is a byproduct of capitalism, which I'm a scheduled ass dude. I love a schedule. And so I'm worried that I may have overstressed that with him. And it's to the point where I want him to just chill. I want him to just, take a deep breath and relax and just enjoy the moment. He's very excited about things that happen in the future. He's like, I can't wait for this, can't wait for that. And I'm like, how about we not say I can't wait? Because if you say you can't wait, it means you don't want to live the life up from now up until that point. But you can be excited for something, that's cool. But let's try to be focused on here and now and whatever. Actually, it was funny. One time on a Tuesday, he said, oh, I can't wait till Wednesday because of something. And then literally the next day he was like, oh man, I can't wait till next Taco Tuesday. And I was like, bro, it was literally Taco Tuesday yesterday. And you were like, I can't wait till Wednesday. And now here it is Wednesday and you can't wait for yesterday. It's easier if you just, focus on and appreciate the day that you're in, one day at a time. And he's 7. So, kids are just exciting and they just, want all these random things and, when's my birthday and da-da-da-da. So that's part of growing up. I'm not trying to say you can't be a kid, but I really do think that it's helpful at least to hopefully try to, center him at this young age and try to have some of those mindsets and ideas, take root or planted at least so that they take root later in life. So that he's able to kind of be mindful and present day to day. but also to go with the flow. I mean, he's a schedule oriented kid. And if something happens that day that he didn't know about ahead of time, he might struggle with that. And I really want to break that down, because life is fluid. I'm a structured person, but I'm learning to appreciate spontaneity and all those things. So it's I don't know. Life is literally a journey, and I can honestly say that where I'm at in life right now, I'm more tuned into myself. I'm more tuned into what is healthy for me. And I'm constantly learning that. I'm definitely not done learning that, but I'm just more tuned to that than ever before. And I'm eager to do more of that work. I hope this episode resonated with you a little bit. I hope it connected a couple of dots in terms of just, what we're trying to do to take care of ourselves, and seeing how the systems we are in aren't really serving us. Again, I go back to Resmaa Menakem, who said that our bodies have intuition and knowledge that precedes the systems that we're living in. And the more we listen to those energies in our body, the more we'll realize what we actually need, what actually serves us as people. And hopefully we can, create micro worlds that better serve our needs than the status quo here in this country. So in terms of the song I'm rocking to right now, before I get to that, I wanted to definitely shout out my best friend Lauren for one of the poems. She's a poet, and I mentioned her before, but she came out with a poem this month, I should say, that just blew me away. And it kind of, so she actually took a new job too. It's a really well-known organization, and but there's still issues about her being a Black woman in areas like this. She's an engineer. She's in STEM as well. So, those issues are still prevalent. 2021, whatever. Like we haven't gotten over much of any of that yet. So, she wrote a poem called "Hidden Ankles," and it's a really brilliant poem. It ties together the historical issue of how women couldn't expose certain parts of their body, ankles being one of them. And it kind of rings to like Hidden Figures, which is the movie and book about the women in NASA who literally were quote unquote computers who literally helped NASA do its thing in the 50s and 60s. So, it's just a really good poem, and I'm gonna give a link to it. I think she has it posted on her social media, and I think her website. I'll put a link to it so y'all can catch that. In terms of the song I'm rocking to right now, I am rocking to Sampa the Great, Energy. I was listening to Lila Ike on like a radio station I created off of her. And by the way, Lauren put me on to Lila, so I got to give her props for that too. But I was listening to her station, and I think that was the station I was listening to, and this beat comes on. I'm like, I'm really feeling it, and just the flow and everything. And it was Sampa the Great, Energy. And this song came out a few years ago, but it just hit me so hard. And I listened to it again since then. And then I went back and watched the video and looked at the lyrics. And this is literally a song. It's really a perfect song to cap off Women's History Month, because it's about feminine energy, and it's about just like giving into that energy and giving into ourselves, which, it kind of caps off this show, because it's talking about listening to our spirits and our bodies and going with that energy and going with that flow. And, so the song I'm rocking to right now is Sampa the Great, Energy. I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes. And I hope you enjoy that one as much as I do. All right, well, that's the show. As always, you can get at me on Instagram at RealDadult. That's RealDadult. I appreciate you for rocking with me. I hope to catch your ear next time. Until then, be safe, be well. Peace.